Shalom. Welcome to everybody. Welcome to everybody in the room. There are some people on Zoom. Welcome to everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Rabbanit Bracha Jaffe. I am the Associate Rabbah right here at HIR The Bayit, and proud to be a graduate of Yeshivat Maharat, receiving Orthodox Smicha in 2017. I'm honored to be here this afternoon, speaking with three amazing women who have been carrying the torch for Jewish feminism and Orthodox feminism for many years. The idea for this panel came from the recognition of how much work has been done and how much work still remains in these areas of social activism and reform and tikkun olam. While these three women have championed these rights and moved the needle forward, they have done so in three different continents, each with their own unique culture. In Israel, in Europe. Thank you for sitting in the order that I wrote it. I appreciate that. In France, and in the United States. There are areas of overlap and areas of difference, and we will be addressing them today. As personally an Israeli and an American, as someone who has fought for years in Israel to prevent get abuse and mesurabot get, as an Orthodox woman who believes in living within halakha, but to the full extent of halakha, I am in awe of your work and the battles that you have fought, many of which you have won. I and many other women stand on your shoulders. Thank you. I'm going to introduce the speakers with a short bio. And of course, it could be much longer. We could probably spend the whole hour just saying their bios, but we're going to keep it a little bit shorter. I will introduce them so you'll get to know them a little bit just from their bios. And then each one will be asked the same question in turn. And you will have 8 minutes, 8 minutes to answer the question. And then 5 minutes perhaps for the last question. We will work on leaving time for Q&A at the end and moderate that, and then closing words from me. Okay. Not in the order that they'll be speaking. Rabbanit Sarah Segel-Katz, sitting at the end, is both first and seventh generation Israeli. I'm not actually sure what that means. Does that mean one parent's first? Okay. First and seventh generation Israeli. She holds an MA in Jewish thought from Hebrew University. Rabbanit Sarah has received smicha from Beit Morasha and the Rabbanut Israelit via the Hartman Institute, and soon from Yeshivat Maharat as well. Rabbanit Sarah has 15 years of experience in rabbinic work. Her expertise combines halachic knowledge with healthy sexuality education. She founded the Gluya Center and Gluya magazine online, which features more than 3,000 texts on Jewish life and has been sadly very vibrant since October 7th. As part of her belief in activism and tikkun olam, she is part of the group that petitioned Israel's Supreme Court, challenging the state rabbinate's policy of offering rabbinical examinations exclusively to men. This fight is sadly still ongoing. In her social activism work, she has addressed issues such as private immersion rights for women in a mikvah in Israel, hygiene reform in the mikvahot, and education and support surrounding sexual abuse and its silencing. Rabbanit Sarah is currently residing in Riverdale, married to Adam and mother of Tzur, Zohar, and Keren. Glad to have you here. Professor Janine El-Koubi. Yes. Right. Is a distinguished scholar, author, and feminist activist in France, renowned for her advocacy for women's rights within the Jewish community. She has tirelessly fought against the exclusion of women from educational and leadership roles, as well as their discrimination in Jewish divorce laws. She has become a key figure in supporting agunot, mesurabot get, women chained in dead marriages, both in France and in Israel. Her activism also extends to interfaith dialogue in France, where she has led several national interfaith associations. As an author, Professor El-Koubi has written numerous works, both fiction and nonfiction, exploring Jewish themes with a particular focus on women's interpretation of the Tanakh and the Talmud. Her significant scholarly and activist contributions have earned her several prestigious honors, including, don't know if I'll say it right, the Chevalier de l'Ordre. There you go.
No, that's
the
the
other
second
one.
First,
De Mérite in 2011, the Kirat HaKehillah title in 2022, and Chevalier de Légion d'Honneur in 2024, France's highest civil honor. It's really very impressive. And of course, Rabbanit Devorah Zlotchauer, senior scholar and mashgicha ruchanit at YCT Rabbinical School. Previously, she served as academic dean and Rosh Kollel at Yeshivat Maharat, and as Rosh Beit Midrash and director of the full-time programs of Drisha Institute. Rabbanit Devorah has taught Talmud and Jewish law for 3 decades at Drisha, SAR High School, Hadar, YCT, and Maharat. Rabbanit Devorah has lived in Riverdale for over 25 years and is the proud mother of Kasriel and Natana Linzer. Welcome. Okay. The first question that I would like each of you to respond to, and the order that we're going to use is Professor Janine, and then Rabbanit Devorah, and then Rabbanit Sarah. Please tell us, everybody in the room and on Zoom, about yourself, about your journey, where you have put your efforts, where has your fight for Jewish feminism taken you? And of course, it'll be the same question for the other two as well. Bevakasha.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I would like to tell you how honored and grateful I am to participate in this panel discussion with such wonderful and renowned rabbiniot, beside whom I feel very insignificant. I hope and I am sure that I will learn a lot from you all, and that thanks to you, I will get new and fructuous ideas to continue the actions I'm involved in. In response to your first question, as long as I remember, I was aware of the injustice of which women were victims everywhere and anytime, everywhere in the world, from the farthest past to the present times. Even in the context of family and school, I realized that boys and girls were not considered as equal. As an avid reader of classic literature, I was exposed to very misogynic texts from thinkers as Aristotle, who was, during many centuries, the universal reference for Western thinkers and philosophers. What about the Jewish women's situation? Even though I had the privilege of learning from a wonderful French rabbi, Rabbi Max Warshawski Zatzal, who was ahead of his time, the more I learned and the more I became aware of women's discrimination in our halakhic literature, on top of which cultural and sociological factors created added layers of inequality in any aspects of one's life. In men and women's Jewish education, in their rigidly assigned gender role within marriage, their very imbalanced power dynamics in marriage, and even more so in divorce. And in the French communities, or at least in Alsace and Lorraine, that is to say, in the communities which are still under the rules of the Concordat established by Napoleon, the impossibility of running for office for public and non-religious roles within the Jewish communities. So over the years, I was led to act in 3 different directions, but as I am pronouncing these words, I realize that these 3 directions are in fact interconnected. First, in the field of education, I work and am still working to push for equal education in Jewish studies. In 1976, I created a new elementary school, Yehuda Halevi, with 2 key principles: integration between secular and Jewish education on one side, full equality between girls and boys, especially in the teaching of Torah Shebal Peh on the other side. 50 years later, none of the Jewish schools, neither in Strasbourg nor in France, followed this way. Torah Shebal Peh is still a domain reserved to boys. As a result, girls and women remain objects of male study and are not allowed to be subjects. The misogynistic texts in the Talmud are not challenged by females, and their interpretation remains that of men. It is to challenge this that I edited a book on women's reading of our texts, and further other 2 volumes of chronicles in which I used Midrash and created my own to give voice to women in the Tanakh and the Talmud. In the field of women's leadership and representation, I'm fighting in 2 fronts. The first involves the right of women scholars to teach co-ed audiences, something that may sound trivial to you, but is not in France. In that regard, I'm afraid to have to acknowledge that France has gone backwards. I will say more about it later today. In terms of women's representation, in 206, I had to struggle in order to grant women the possibility of being elected to the consistoires of Alsace and Lorraine, which was not permitted at this date. My request was denied, so I had to turn the administrative court, which ruled in our favor. And the third main aspect of my feminist action is in the Jewish community, involves my fight for women Mesoravot get, a problem which is a mega phenomenon in France. The most terrible case I had is that of a woman who was expecting since 29 years her get from a man who attempted 3 times to kill her and who was in jail for 10 years. It's important for me to tell you that the one who liberated this woman is Rav Simcha Kraus Zatzal, the Av Bet Din of the International Bet Din, who had the courage and the empathy to issue a psak din of Hafka'at Kiddushin, a decision which I am so grateful to him. I have to say, to my great regret, that this problem is far from being resolved. I have now 2 recent cases to deal with, and nothing is moving in the realm of France.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, everybody take a breath. Rabbanit Devorah, same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
So first of all, I don't even know what to say. I feel like everything that's happened here, you did by yourself. And here it took a lot of people, and I'm just honored to be sitting next to you and learning from you. I also wanted to thank someone who really deserves all the credit here, Dr. Right?
Yes.
Yes, Sarah Block El-Kubi, whose brainchild this was, to bring the three of us together. So thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. Thank you. So that did not feel completely full. I said that. Okay. I guess I'll start a little bit also with my own history, some of the things that you said were shocking were part of my own growing up, as a context for what I want to talk about in terms of my feminist activism, which mostly has to do with learning and teaching Torah. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a community that we would have called a frum community. And what that really meant is obviously was frum, but also did not identify as modern Orthodox. I've had different discussions about how we should try and talk about it. It wasn't yeshivish, it wasn't, I wouldn't call it, ultra or anything like that, but, very much on the right end of things. I was educated in Lubavitch schools. There were 2 schools in Pittsburgh. There was, at that time, what was more of a modern Orthodox school. It then became a Lakewood staff school, and the Lubavitch school where most of those who came from families like mine found ourselves. So our curriculum, our school was split, it was not co-educational. And the curriculum of the boys and girls was very different. I did not learn Gemara, and in fact, I didn't learn Gemara until I was 25 years old. After much cheshbon and nefesh, much thinking about it and trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate that in my life. So I would say that my encounters with feminism really happened in 2 different planes. One is really about secular feminism. And I think it's really important to recognize that Jewish feminism, Orthodox Jewish feminism, and certainly feminism in the United States owes a tremendous debt to the women's movement that took place in the 70s and the 80s. And I really don't think we can talk about all the things that have happened in the years since without really acknowledging those heroes, those people who led the way. So that's first of all. So my kind of awareness of, and maybe part of that has to do with my never fitting into what I was supposed to be doing. So I never fit in. So in many ways, I guess I was a feminist from a very young age, because I was pretty much constantly calling out where things were unfair to girls, which meant also unfair to me. On every level. I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to learn Gemara. All the things that I wanted to do, I couldn't do. That was something that was very much a part of who I was. But also belonging to my community was a huge part of who I was and how I identified. And so for a very long time, I felt really very much like I just didn't fit. I wasn't quite sure what to do about that. Drisha came into my life at the age of 25. I was in graduate school in political science. I was not happy. I knew there was this place called Drisha. Rav Dina Naiman was already there. I joined when she was in her 2nd year there. There was this place which I knew about, which seemed completely crazy and was completely out of my universe, out of my world. But things got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to make a move. And I decided to go to Drisha. I took a leave of absence from graduate school and I never turned back. 5 years later, I graduated from what the really first multi-year advanced learning program called the Scholar Circle. This is all now part of history. And not too long afterwards became the Rosh Beit Midrash at that point the director of full-time programs at Trisha, and was hired to teach Gemara within that full-time program, which either was or wasn't the first time a woman did that. It could be it was, but I haven't checked my facts. So I would say that for me, even though I don't and I could not separate things like ritual participation, making kiddush, speaking from the bima, all of those kinds of things to me were part of the same story as the learning. I had friends who to this day can draw that line. They want to learn Torah. They're not feminists. That didn't fly for me. I did not see, I mean, it's about power, it's about exclusion, all of those things are there, and therefore it was clear to me that it was that this was a feminist act as well. But the thing where I kind of really felt most passionately and wanted not just to make a difference, but first primarily, honestly, for myself, because I wanted to learn Torah. And at a certain point, that also became not just learning Torah, but also empowering other women to learn Torah, and beginning to understand some of what you mentioned, which is, although I won't use the term misogynistic, so we can talk a little bit about how I think about those texts and how I run back and forth between them. But we can talk a lot about things related to that. But I did begin to, I think the way that I dealt with texts that I found very troubling, and troubling particularly for women, or moments when I didn't see myself in the text or saw myself being treated derisively in the text, was to talk about it, with my students, to surface it. And that sort of became my main, I would say, one of my main moves. I think about it as being both reverent and critical at the same time. And that ad hayom hazeh, until this day, this is very much a part of how I teach, how I learn, and who I am.
Thank you.
Wow.
לא כל ימי ישבתי בין חכמים, אבל נראה לי מבחינת לשתוק. Thanks. First of all, I want to share that I'm here and focused on our topic, but my heart is with my beloved friend, Shira, and her husband, Yair, and the kids that just lost their son and the father, Eta Yitzchakana in Gaza. My heart is broken, and I want us to remember that we are sitting here discussing process of Jewish feminism in the world while there is a war in Israel and hostages. And all of this has effect on women as well, but on every gender. And it's not clear whether feminist theories help at this time, and in general, which theories are action help right now. We are all trying, but we've been holding on to great hope for a long time, alongside layer upon layer upon layer of sadness. This is not a place to discuss the role of women or in women organization and the tools from the feminist toolkit regarding the war, but it is very much in the background here. The commitment to vulnerable groups in society and to correcting injustice, tikkun olam. It is important for me to echo this as a friend, as a mother, as a citizen of the state of Israel. Today, a poll was published in Israel by about 2,000 rabbis from all streams of Judaism to do everything possible to release the hostages. When I signed, as well as my colleagues, I saw it as a rabbinical act that is responsible for entire public. I'm sitting here and I want to say, first, I'm part of a sisterhood. One layer that I really thank to my teachers that really taught me or did action before I came and tried to study Torah as a woman with my desire, passion, and authority as well. And I really thanks to Rabbanit and Dr. Michal Koczynski that ordained me in Beit Morasha, Rabbanit Malka Piotrkowski, that we feel that something from the deep of our souls is belong to each other, and really helped me with my secret work with sexual abuse and more. And I do thanks to Professor Onit Irshai that just visited here and talked about Jewish feminism in Israel with Dr. Tanya Tzion Goldix. I can tell you some things about my biography, but I want to share that Professor Amia Lieblich published in November 23 a book, Rabot Vetovot, like Rabot, like Rabini Etrol, and like many women, 29 interviews with rabbis from all of the nation, like in Israel, about their biography and how they found themselves as rabbis, like Rabbah, Rabbanit, Rav, Rev, yeah, you know, all of this name. And maybe historically we are in the situation right now, there is pluralistic ways how to describe the role of being rabbi. Maybe we will say just rabbi in another 20 years, but maybe we want the pluralism way that there is many ways how to be rabbis. And I'm part of sisterhood of the religious feminism in Israel. Without my colleagues, I wouldn't succeed in any step. I couldn't think that I can do something. And it's not just women in the sisterhood, it's even so men. The fact that I'm part of Beit Hillel, for example, rabbis, women rabbis, and male rabbis that trying to change things, and it's very hard, and sometimes the time and the energy of inside arguments taking all of the energies, but it's really trying to do something wider together. Feminism does not belong just for women. I know that maybe to see it in the United States and Riverdale, I'm saying things that are like non-issue, it's well known, but it's really important to my biography. And if we would see it in Israel, it is a new thing. And I'm not sure that we are in good times anywhere. So to say it is really important. I want to say that I think the situation of Israel, the relationship between state and religion, changed the frame of all of discussion. And I'll give you the examples. I'm giving answer as a rabbi, especially in Nida, like daily life of Nida, of Tahara and Tumah, and the Tvilah. And it can be even about like the ceremony of Tvilah, maybe in the end of pregnancy. It's not halachik, it's minhag, or maybe Erev Yom Kippur, maybe birthday. But this is one part. And for example, as Rabbanit Bracha just mentioned, my knowledge did not consider through the lens of the state. So when I'm giving an answer, officially it's just an advice, like a Bible advice, not a rabbi with knowledge. I'm saying that, but when I started to give answer, just women came to me and asked the question, or came to ask my guidance before wedding or while they're married, or maybe it was about abortion. Is it allowed to talk about abortion in the United States? And there is a lot of question about it, right?
Still.
And the question even how the chuppah is going to look like, and like the brief, and like simchat habat, and about funerals, and about the shiva. There is a lot of rules, part of them really halachic, heavy halachic things, some of them are minhag, but it's part of the religious life or Jewish life. And at the beginning I heard, oh, it's great that you're telling me that, but can you please give me a number of a real rabbi that will talk to my husband or to my fiancé or my parents if it's a prenup discussion about signing or not signing. I don't hear it. I think more than 8 years, like half of my working, it's changed. It didn't change because of me. There is a net of put a lot of effort to change the view, the present, and to understand that women do know halacha if they study it seriously. Men and women can give the answers. Women does not always give the kula. Sometimes the historic point right now that sometimes when women studied halacha, they try to be more Talmid Chacham than Talmid Chacham, more Frum than Frumer, like because it's like to validation about their knowledge and the place in the sociology. And I think I'm looking forward to the time that will be more balanced and everyone will feel at home, bnei bait and not bait, in the world of the halacha. And this is one part. And of course, that Nida, it's like the topic, but the mikvah's part, it's another topic. In purpose, I took myself, like while I studied halacha and ordained in halacha knowledge, and it's not just Nida, but I took myself and I volunteered 11 years as a balanit. Because, you know, we can
translate that.
Yeah, okay, mikvah lady. Right. So, it's a great thing to want to change the whole world, but if someone here like listened to me yesterday, I talked about the micro and the macro and the micro, and it is part of changing. We need to have like a public voices and to echo it, but there is really gentle moments. To give a halachic answer is a gentle and holy moment, an ethic moment, and to change the perspective of society, sometimes we lose the holiness and we're very, very politic when we're talking about it, but it's responsibility that are not like erase each other. It's the same responsibility. Sometimes our personality does have just like specific ability to do things. And sometimes we can do more. I'm trying to do both of the things. So I did it in mikveh, and in purpose, I gave the knowledge, the women in the mikveh, even so that are not the women that would come to me and ask, just with that question, do you want me to be your balanit or do you want to be by yourself?
Thank you.
There is a freedom. Do you want me to get inside the room with the mikveh, like the pool, or do you want me to enter after you? And I'm going to be with my back and you'll tell me when you're in the water. I'll turn to your side, I'll see you, and then I'll behave with my shmirat einayim. I will close my eyes immediately and turn my head. I need just a moment to see that all of you are under the water. And women, well, it's what mind-blowing to part of them, and crying even that it is changed. So this is one part. I'll talk afterward about sexual abuse and if we did things about it in chupot, and what's going on with the authority of the knowledge in halacha when it's coming to women.
Thank you.
Wow.
I think we can already see that in the different countries, how the journey and the path, of course, depending on the personality of each woman here, but how the path has been different, meandering in a different way.
Nice.
The next question that I'd like to ask the panel is, can you share some of the successes as well as some of the obstacles and perhaps failures, and where you feel there's more work to be done? We'd like to hear a little bit of both. So Professor Janine, please.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the results are quite sobering. In terms of women's education, Torah Shebal Peh, as I told you, remains a man's land. There are a few initiatives in small groups in the fringes that work to make the Talmud accessible for women, especially in Paris, but not, I don't think, in Strasbourg. And truth to be told, two of the main leaders in this field are two women trained at Yeshiva Maharat, Miriam Ackerman, who graduated a few years ago, and Hannah Ruimi, who is my friend, and who is about to graduate in June. To provide, in a few words, some context about the points I will unfold afterwards, I have to say that the community in Strasbourg and in France as well changed during the 30 last years. becoming more religious, which would be a good thing, of course, if it would also let place to other ways for every Jewish person to define it himself. This change is to be perceptible in the two following examples. Before 2003, I was invited every year by the rabbi in charge of this annual event to give at the Yom HaLimud of Shavuot a co-ed shiur, and even to give the concluding shiur several times in presence of the chief rabbi and many people. In 2003, an external rabbi at the head of the Haredi community, which was non-consistorial, required from this rabbi who organized the Yom HaLimud to force me to give my shiur exclusively to women. What he did, this rabbi, what he did, I was extremely offended and shocked, and I refused. One of the famous and religious members of the community, Henri Ackerman, who is the grandfather of Emile Ackerman, the husband of Miriam, whom I told just before, Henri Ackerman offered me to provide my shiur in a place he had at disposal. So I was able to resist to this incredible pressure, and I could teach in presence of 80 persons. This situation existed during many years in my community. Just a few years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, this rabbi, the organizer, called me to teach again. I asked him if this would be a co-ed shiur. Yes, he answered, but I did not get any apology. And more generally speaking, there are very few, if any, women scholars who teach mixed gender audiences in Strasbourg or more generally in France. Just a word in addition, I have to say that if this rabbi, whom I know very good, it's a friend of ours, if this rabbi would not have such a fear from the Haredi rabbi, who had no word to say in the community, if this fear would not have existed, he would not have accepted to force me to change the habits which were in the community. I have to say that the years before, this Haredi rabbi was teaching in another place than me in the community, at this Yom HaLimud, and nothing did disturb him. Suddenly, the things changed, and he wanted me to change the habit, my habit, and the habit of the community, of the whole community. This was not acceptable. I created the second example now. I created 5 years ago a new Jewish association, which is called Pour une communauté plurielle. That is to say, for a pluralist community. Which purpose of this new association is, on one part, to be open to every Jewish person in the community, either religious honor, and on the other part, to conciliate the Jewish thought and the general one. Because it seems to me and to my friends and to my staff, very meaningful to cross the sources of knowledge and to enlighten the ones by the others. The chief rabbi and the actual chief rabbi and the president of the consistoire forbid us to announce our events in the medias of the community, which every one of us is yet a member. They prevent us getting a place for locating events and refuse us categorically to co-organize with us any meeting or conference. Despite of this interdiction, and perhaps because of this stupid and unproductive attitude, our association has until now 200 members and is more and more growing and expanding, and more than 200 people come to each of our numerous events. One word and I will finish. This stupid attitude that I told you is not believable, and I think it's the real reason of this is the desire of these men, the chief rabbi as well as the president, to keep the full power on everything which happens in the community. They are unable to share every responsibility, and they don't want that anything is retired from their authority and their responsibility. And this is very damageable for the whole community, for the club.
Whoa. I think we heard a lot about obstacles and successes. So thank you. In spite of the obstacles, Rabbanit Tabara. Similar question, successes, obstacles, failures, places to improve.
Well, I think I have to begin with the Hakarat Hatov, to the way things very carefully, at least have worked in this country for a very long time. We have the privilege of being decentralized. We don't have a chief rabbi of anything. And the modern Orthodox community has flourished. And those kinds of distinctions have really been absolutely critical. Those structural pieces that are almost built in, I think we don't appreciate and recognize enough how important they are, that has given us so much ability to be able to proceed and to not fight against the kinds of obstacles that you're talking about. Pluralism is very natural here. Well, not so much the pluralism, but the fact that there are many, many denominations has always been part of, the history of this country. Separation of church and state, and really the booming just modern orthodoxy in the place where we locate ourselves. So we very fortunately find ourselves on the liberal end of modern orthodoxy, fighting for more. What we're battling against doesn't remotely come close to what the two of you have been talking about. Not that you can go to this mikvah and not go in without having someone watch you down. But there are limits. Okay, so I want to talk. I guess I'll start by talking about some successes, and then what to me are the things that keep me up at night in terms of proceeding forward. I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate. Rabbi Silver opened Drisha in the 1970s. I no longer remember the year. Rav Soloveitchik gave what? 79. Rav Soloveitchik gave a shiur at Stern College even before that. Thanks, Rav Dina. Just wrote
It was in
about it, I
the
don't
60s,
remember.
but he officially.
So Gemara for women, at least in the modern Orthodox community, existed at some level, and I was able to kind of walk into that once I left my own community. Our challenge was getting to the next level, and 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 that's where we'll talk about the challenges. But I do want to recognize that being in the right place at the right time and living at the right moment in history is very much a part of my story. And I'm extremely grateful to people like Blue Greenberg, who helped set the stage, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who had me come into the world when I did. And so it's not, it really isn't all about me. It's really about a lot of what was happened. And at the same time, I have managed to put myself forward in context and have in those cases, in a number of those cases, been able to succeed. In terms of challenges, and this is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, and then I want to talk about men and women in a moment. Well, this goes into this. I taught at SAR High School for a number of years and was fortunate enough to have some of the wonderful students that Rav Dina had educated. I was given the 11th grade honors Gemara class, which I very much enjoy teaching, as well as a number of other classes, which I equally enjoyed teaching. And they were co-ed. It's SAR. There were co-ed classes. Gemara was co-ed from the beginning and straight through 12th grade. And then the following would happen. So imagine a chavruta of a young man and a young woman who are at the top of their game, and they go off to Israel for their gap year. And one of them goes to an excellent women's midrasha, and one of them goes to, let's call it the gush, and they're a chavruta. And then they come home, and instead of being here, they're here. What happened? What happened? What happened? And that's the story of the next step and of what we're missing and of what breaks my heart. What's the difference? So I think there are a number of factors that go into this. A huge piece of this is culture. For thousands of years, our culture, we have been putting forward the message to men, learn Torah, right? Become a Talmid Chacham. This is what you should aim for. See Rav Moshe Feinstein, he started learning when he was, in the womb, and look where he went. And this Rav and that Rav and this Rishon and that Rishon, and you look at this, you're all men, and if you're someone who really, a boy who really cares about learning, I happen to know at least one. When you're very, very young, you take in that message, and that's what inspires you and drives you. And you're learning all the time that you can from the time you're, 10, 11, you go to yeshiva, you're putting in 16-hour days. That goes on year after year after year. That's one factor, is the sense of that push, 2,000 years of push, motivating someone who's talented and someone who's willing. Then there's the other piece, which is if you walk into the gush, I'm imagining this, by the way, there aren't 8 people learning, or 10, or even 20. Hundreds? Is that fair? Yeah, hundreds. Okay, and here you are, you're a little 19-year-old schlepper, right? You just came off the boat from the United States for your gap year, and you look around and you see guys who are in their 20s and guys who are in their 30s and guys who are sitting there learning, and they've all been learning longer than you. But you know what? They're not the teachers. They're not the teachers. They're just guys who've been sitting and learning more years than you. And there you have not only your role models, you have the people you can come and ask questions. You're being surrounded by this, and you know, and you understand what your place is. You understand who you are. And you understand what it's going to take to be able to get to the next level and the next level and the next level. We don't have that. We don't have that. We don't have the full, huge Batei Midrash. We don't have the cultural encouragement. We don't have the easiness of being able to see ourselves in that chain of tradition. It's all much more conflictual. Tell you one story about this. I remember one year at Risha, we were learning ET, just to keep within the topic. And so we're learning about the laws of divorce, and two women at Chavruta, and each of us finds ourselves constantly saying, so let's say I divorced my wife. Wait a second. No. Let's say I divorced my husband. No, can't do that either. Let's say my husband divorces me. So not only does it require many, many extra words, but what it means is you're now standing outside the text, learning it. You're just not immersed in there. Now, do I think a guy should be immersing himself in some of those texts without reflecting? No, you should be reflecting too. But there's that easy entrance that doesn't, you know, that's being blocked, that makes you constantly conscious of what's going on here. I'm on this side. 1 minute. Yeah. I have the wonderful, wonderful privilege of being the Mashkicha Ruchanit and a Rebbe at Yeshivat Chovei Torah, which is an Orthodox yeshiva for men. And I love it. I love it there. Absolutely love it there. There are a few things that I think about a lot. Number one is they don't see me as an outsider, which is incredible. And they see me as part of their Masorah, right? I am their Rebbe. So that in and of itself is kind of a huge thing. And they're also willing and do listen to me talk about things like this and understand that there's a difference and to be sensitive to that. So that voice comes into there. The first sikha that I ever gave was what it meant to have a kinyan b'Torah, to have a sense that Torah is owned by you, and what does it mean to have to fight for ownership. And it's also nice to be in a place where people aren't fighting so hard. Thank you.
Wow.
Israel.
I belong to the generation that we studied Gemara and did Bagrut final exams in Gemara, and it was a chidush. And I need to thank to Rabbi Riskin, that was the head of my high school, and it's coming from here. And even so, just when I got to the Midrashah, we realized that the pages of the Gemara that was in our test, it's the curriculum of our friends of Bnei Akiva in Kita Zayin in the 7th grade. So in a way, now women doing their like final exams in Gemara, double and even a third of the amount of pages in a high level in Israel. And maybe this is the process that I think that's going to be with studying halacha, not just Gemara. So I can hold the view. And I remember when we did like in Bet Morash our exam, and Rabbi Melamed, Eliezer Melamed tested us. We went to some official office that I can say oral, but I don't want to say the name of the high rabbi that examined us in Israel. I can't say it. And then after we went from Rehov Yirmiyahu to Har Bracha, he tested us, and after we wrote the exam, he had like conversation with us, and he asked us, how long do you know how to open the Gemara? And the daughter of Eliezer, Ephraim Elimelech Orbach, Rabbanit Rachel Keren next to me, and Rabbanit Voreb, we were not Rabbaniot then. And I was like the youngest, and I said, we've got ability since Bagrut. It's not the same biographies. And he was in a way shocked, but not really, because he knows, for example, Pelech, but he did these steps out of these worlds. And I think that nowadays, if women want to study halacha, and they don't need to tell themselves, oh, do I have BA and MA, and can I have it, and what is the economic situation in my life, that they'll do it. They can be 21 and go to some halachic program. And this is something that we thought it will be with our granddaughters. So kind of this is Geula. But if we're looking at the high level of the state, as you heard, still now, all of the halachic program for women in Israel are private. And even like Rabbi Hefter, that it's women and men as well. Like the state does not recognize our knowledge. And it's really cultural and sociology, and not really halachic issues. And it is the wide question, who's holding all the gates in the state, and who's like holding the citizen, being like citizen and authority in the state. And now we've got other discussion about it, but it's the same discussion. So my examples here are going to be mixed of Geula and in the way or backlash. There is backlash. In my private life, we came here. Part of the reason it's you, Reb Dina. Part of the reason it's you and you, rabbis, Linzers, and the environment of SAR and HAR. No, yeah, I'm trying to. I'm sorry, it's not feministic. Yeah, okay, that's how well and Linzer. But it's hard to Israel to say it's not. Yes. Okay, so it felt. So it's other environment, even so that, our private life, we live in Katamon, to go to the grocery, people are hugging me or just like saying hugs in a way with all of my public action. But really, I lost some friends, some circles in my life because of my activity. It is mourning. I'm really feel that I'm after that, and we're in other chapter in our life, but there is high crisis, and I'm not alone with that, and it's part of the sisterhood. You know what? I didn't think that I'm going to say it, but I remember the time that I was very involved in some story of sexual abuse, and people called me and told me, you need to know that this rabbi is going to commit suicide because of you, again and again and again, and came to our home and told me that this is my responsibility, and I'm doing him damage. And people that some of them I grew up with them, or went to the midrasha, or was a friend from other things with the husband, and it was very hard. And the days after, I took it very hard. And the day after, I realized the pressure that some group decided to do these kind of steps. Colleagues of mine started to come in our home and just be with me and talk, kind of Shiva, really. And it's really gave me strength. And I know that I'm part of a group. I'm part of a net that we're doing things, and we're trying to save nefashot, like really the souls and being alive. And it's really helped me. So there is two sides. There is backlash. With that to say, and we know it. I was part of Chupot, the organization of wedding. It's the first year I was the Orthodox women in Israel that ordained most Chupot in Israel, okay? I was the rabbi, the halachic one that did the chuppah, not like rituals, really halachic. But it's really a minority. Most of the couples looking for a male that looked like a rabbi. Not a Litvak rabbi, do you understand? Like the, so iconic. So, and I felt that till it's not going to change through the institution of the state, and women could do the role of Mesader Kiddushin, it always reflects through the society. So I can't be part of the petition. I'm already part of one petition, right? So I can't be part of this petition because of Nikion Kapayim. Like the judges can say that I already was Mesader Kiddushin, so I can't appeal to the high court. So some other women took the role of this. So, and I don't know, because even here in the liberal world, the Orthodox, I'm not sure that women are Mesadrot Kiddushim a lot. So it's other question. I'm just, it's open questions. the knowledge, the authority of knowledge. Till now, when I'm calling to a colleague, woman colleague, and I'm asking her, can you please write an article to my website about halacha? And she's saying, what do I know? How can I do it? So when I established Gluya as a magazine, now you get to Gluya, it's really, really behind because of lots of poetry and prayers and things from October 7th that you'll find in halacha of the sectionality between a couplehood life, engagement, singlehood, nida, mikveh, and even mourning. You'll find halachic articles of women. How? I organized a team that edited the text. You won't know because it's the name of the author that exists there. It's not a shadow writing. Someone really wrote, but it was a ping pong between us. And it was like to be a doula, like to help, like in the giving birth the text. I'm sorry that it's too much the radical feminism to say. Yeah, it's okay. Terminology, okay. So, and I myself had to break this ceiling glass. I need to tell you, every time till now. First, I'm really feeling that I've got the fear from the empty paper, and it's a lot of how can I say something? How can I say? And then I'm saying, do like the nachshon, and you're not the only nachshon. You're part of the sisterhood. Prenup. It's not like with Chobeh Bay that the rabbis from Chobeh Bay are living like Mesadrei Kiddushin just in the couple sign prenup. It's
And
not
Maharat.
what?
And
Maharat as well. Yeah. So in Israel, it's not like this, but I see the process. If the question of the parents change the decision of couples, or the man like of the couple that is not the husband that are just in the engaged period coming with the opinion from his like yeshiva, it was very hard. Nowadays it's less hard, and couples coming to me, and it's not because I'm just like with this kind of group of people. It's well known as an option, and it's like really responsibility for the public to do it. But it is a process, and it's minority if you compare it to the modern Orthodox in Israel and the ultra Orthodox, of course. Praying, there is more and more and more egalitarian, semi-egalitarian, close to egalitarian, something egalitarian minions in Israel. Young couples want to do it more. They want to, like I said before, the ceremonies in their life, like the family life while they're praying. So something's changing. Is it like official change in the state? No, but it's something that's very important. I can have other examples, but I just want to say that in Beit Adin, Batei Adin, I can't say that there is a change. My colleague, the lawyer Nitzan Kaspi Shiloni, showed in her thesis that violence exists in the language of the judges, the rabbis in Beit Adin, while they have a discussion about violence between the couple, and they always like, with doubt, is it a violence? Are you in danger if he tried to kill you? Okay. So we can see that, and of course, sexual abuse. And I'm sorry to say it, I really know from inside Takana, and I do think that Takana now they need to change. They're trying to empower the rabbi's status and not really to help. And I think they lack the theories of feminism. This is the thing. So cultural knowledge really important for that. I'm sorry that I'm saying it. And I just want to mention two things. Robert Carver, that you probably know his theories, it's 40 years of theories of nomus and narrative. And my teacher, Professor Ronit Irshai, really writing about him. He claimed that when we want to change something, really the law, we need like the cultural, the narrative, the ethos of our life. We need to change things here, and then judges feel that, like public are really feel that something needs to change, and then they change. I think there is not enough discussion about the fact that in Israel, I don't know, tell me about your life, sometimes it's the same players on the fields. I am part of the nomus, willing to change. We've been part of the petition, and I am part of the society, like the narrative side, the cultural of giving answer, being a mikvah lady, leading ceremonies, writing texts, doing things with other, and it's like tzvat mitzvat asuya, like it's going together like a puzzle, and maybe we will change things or not. And the other thing is really the painful. There is the idea of Maureen the Fricker of injustice, like epistemology injustice. And there is a question. If women saying their opinion, too much opinion, too much assertive, these kind of things, maybe we hear it less about women in Jewish feminism, but when women describe themselves, even let's say about Nida, what they're feeling in their body, the rabbis, men and women, believe them, or they think they have more knowledge than them. And to reflect it with women right now, maybe it's too early to show like blind spot that we've got even in our like curriculum of halacha, how its role, how its act, and how do we have discussion about gittin of the place of women in it. Rivka Lubitsch suggests that maybe if we can't solve the problem with agunot, maybe we can't do real chuppah, like halachic chuppah. And we'll say that couples nowadays have no da'at, no really idea of what is obligation. I don't want this kind of solution. I want to be inside the halachic life all the time. I don't want to quit of this process. And I do have really hard question about historically our curriculum and the way that it's role right now and what is our duty. So it's a lot of waves of feminism inside my discussion, like what the first, the second, the third, but this is the process. It's all the time, all of the waves in feminism and all of the waves of our shelves of knowledge. So I'm going with these questions.
Okay. We have two more pieces of this evening. One of them is to welcome questions from the audience, but I don't want to skip, this feels more important to me, I think, since the impetus for this panel was actually to bring three women from three different continents and three different cultures. And each of you have described your battles where, and in some ways we could say it's one long line and each of you have started here and gotten here, started here and gotten here. Some of it is the same, some of it is different. The question is, we could leave everything as is, everybody on their own little dots on the map, on the map of the globe, or do any of you three have suggestions for how we can collaborate, how to work together? Where can we support each other and not each of us go back to our own place and continue it by ourselves? Or is that not a possibility? So we said originally we would give 5 minutes for it, each of you, and I think that won't leave any time for Q&A, or maybe Q&A will happen by email. But if each of you could take a moment to think to yourself, has there been a success with collaboration, for example? Is there something you would like to see? Is there something you could help or receive from the other? Is there some way that we can unite, and there's something about the power of women and men, but starting with women working together, that has a different lens and that can support each other in a way that each of us will feel supported and not isolated in our own country fighting our battles. It doesn't have to be in the order that we said before. So
I'll make 2 points.
Okay.
One is we live in a global society now, Tova L'Ra.
Okay.
So I think we have to take more advantage of that. And the other thing I want to point to is Yeshivat Maharat, which is educating women from France, Israel, the United States,
England.
Australia, England, Germany, Switzerland. Wow. So I think that's an incredible opportunity, and maybe someone could suggest to Rabbi Sarah that some sort of conference is, but I think that's an incredible place where there's a meeting of
Beautiful.
minds.
And you did
I'll
that all
stop
in
there.
under a minute. So we're really impressed. No, thank you, Rabbi Nitzvah. Thank you. Would you like to say
Just a
something?
minute.
Yeah.
Of course, for me and for the Jewish women in France, it's very, very important to be in touch with other communities out of France, where the things go forward. Of course, I heard what you said, but the things are better in USA and in Israel than in France. This is evident for me. And I'm now, I work in this field. I'm in touch since a few months with a few Jewish women in Paris, young women, and this is very important because the rare women who were working in Paris and in other places were old women, were not young women. And it's very important that the young women prendre le relais.
That the young generation takes over.
Follow this way. And I'm just in touch with such a young group of Jewish women, and we planned to create a new association in France devoted to the Mesarabat Get. This is the main problem, I think, in France, domain in which nothing exists.
Wow.
This association must be an address for the many women who have to face a get refusal without any help until now. It must be too a source of information on every level, juridical, psychological, religious level, and last but not least, a means of pressure on the rabbinate in France, and I have the great regret to say this, who is so less empathic and responsive. We have also to think about how we can transmit more strength and self-confidence to the Jewish women and help them to fight against the culpability that too often feel. And it seems to me that it's not only in France, but in every place. This issue of culpability, I met it in two recent cases I have to deal with. One of the women during 25 years stayed with a violent man because she thought perhaps it was her fault. Perhaps she didn't do what she had to do, and that it took her much time to understand and to feel that it was not so, and that she had the right and the duty to leave him. So we have, I think, much, in French we say pain sur la planche, much bread on the,
Much work to do.
much to do. And I hope really that having contacts with you rabbinites, and with the organization you have, and with Maharat, and with other organizations will be for us a great and important help. And I thank you in advance.
I will add to that a graduate of Maharat, Rabbi Rami Smith, along with other women, started an organization in England called Get Out, G-E-T-T, Get Out, to help the Sorority Get, and that's pretty new, and they have been successful in bringing it to the newspapers and finding ways to undo it.
So
And because they're in Europe, I feel, in that same area, I feel like that might be, and also fighting against a very centralized and right wing. So that feels like, so that's already something also good that we could connect with. Yeah.
Give me her address.
Yeah, giving you heart. Yeah, giving heart. 2 minutes. 2 minutes really though.
First, I think that honestly, American and of course Israeli owe to France the democracy and the liberté, right?
But that's passe.
Yeah, I know, everything's the same. But we need to believe that it's not the same, right? So, and I really think that, as I said before, like net and sisterhood, or maybe peoplehood, like having the knowledge what's going on everywhere, and even today to translate some articles, and we know that translation, it's not a technical work. We need like to know who's the audience and to do some work with it, but we can give like more center and focus to the democracy of knowledge. I really believe it. I think it's really important. I gave you some like perspective about my life, but really splits, it's part of feminism. It's in other fields as well. But people, like when it's really thick and hard field, people starting to fight even in this like small field. And I know these prices of the generation before me in Israel. And I, from time to time, I'm telling to my role models, that are a lot of role models, I hope that our generation won't be like this. And I'm saying it with knowing about splits in my generation as well. So I think that's more having conversation and feeling that we're in the same ground, even it's not geographically and not cultural, we can share things that can help to cope the situation. I'll add other things. Lots of role models having conversation with me about psychosomatic health crisis. It's not a discussion, but it is true. Sometimes when you fight and you knock the gate of Beit Din again and again, and you present couples, you pay prices of second-hand trauma, but it is trauma. So we need to acknowledge this as well. And I think that conversation and more knowledge from all of the layers, like leaders, teachers, students, and even the generation that start to study Gemara in elementary school or maybe high schools, or maybe not studying Gemara in Halacha with authority, but we can open their like eyes and show where there is gates. It's an opening of a process, and it's hard because of all of the gaps, but it's really important. And I do think that it's not the same mission every place, but we can say what we can share and what is the differences. And I hope we're helping each other with it.
It's beautiful. People can feel free to go and also feel free. There's food outside. But we could, we started 10 minutes late, so that's approximately the time we gave for Q&A.
You handled this so beautifully.
So
I'm
if-
so
if-
glad I wasn't in your shoes.
It's okay. Does anybody have a question that they'd like to ask, please?
Yeah, I don't know how to put this, but I'm saying, is there any outreach from women's yeshivas like Maharat to the Sephardic community, to the Ethiopian community,
Great.
to women who are minorities who want to have the knowledge but don't have the accessibility to it?
I'm going to repeat the question. I'm not sure the people on Zoom could hear or in the room. So beautiful, is Sharon saying?
Yeah.
Sharon. Sharon asked the beautiful question, which has not been discussed here. Has there been outreach from Yeshivat Maharat or other organizations that are working with women to reach to the Sephardic or Ethiopian communities where perhaps women are even less empowered or maybe don't have options? That's a whole cultural thing in and of itself. I don't know if that's just a question for the table.
I recommend, because there's 3 panelists
Yeah.
and only phone up time, maybe take like 2 or 3.
Yeah. I wasn't even sure that anybody has an answer for that, but they totally have answers for that. But that's a great idea. Okay, so one is about outreach to, and maybe one person will answer for each question. Yeah,
I
outreach
think
to.
like this is
That
very
was you.
issue in Israel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's-
absolutely.
it's-
Okay, so we'll leave that for you. That's great, but we're gonna take a couple. Anybody else have questions? Yes.
I have a question for Janine. The story you said about the Haredi rabbi that told you that you cannot have a co-ed class. Your choice of not, it was probably, for me, it's outraging. But you chose to not fight back, head on, and do a different class. And eventually it turned out okay. Why did you choose that path and not, because you were there before, you were doing the classes co-ed and suddenly somebody came from outside. Why did you choose that path and not?
The
Attends.
question is why I choose to,
To not fight the Haredi rabbi.
because it was
Attends.
really impossible. My class was inside the synagogue, the great synagogue of Strasbourg. So if the rabbi decided I couldn't give my shiur, it was impossible for me to do it. But I think it was a real form of resistance, because in despite of this diktat, this fatwa, I gave my shiur, and I gave my shiur every year at Shavuot, and he could do nothing against this.
Well, I want to add, I thought you said that they asked you to do it not co-ed, and you, is that true? They asked you to do it for women and you refused.
Right.
I
So to me,
refused.
that feels
I
like
refused.
you absolutely fought back by saying, I'm
Yeah.
not capitulating on my ikaron, on my principle of a woman being able to teach a co-ed. So I feel like there was a little bit of both. She did stand her ground. Just one second, Rabbi Linzer. I think Professor Janine stood her ground and also found a way to still keep the class going with the help of somebody else. And to be continued, you could have a discussion with her afterwards.
I just want to say, I think it's beautiful from like a martial arts point of view. So it's not power against power. It's, you know, taking it. and
So
moving it.
maybe that's another, yes, I see it that way as well, to find a way to be successful. I mean, if nobody had shown up, then it wouldn't have been successful.
Right.
But 80 people showed up, and ad kedei kach, that after standing your ground for so, I think that's a huge point of light, that it was already part of the community, that there's a shiur that Professor Janine gives. If it's in his house, that's great. If it's in the shul, also great. We'll go wherever she is. So thank you for highlighting that point of light. And I think we need some points of light in France, especially. Rabbi Linzer, and then we'll go back to the other questions. Well, yes.
So I'm curious if if you could imagine one thing that could be different, like what could be the biggest engine of change? You know, I'm thinking going back to like 30, 40 years ago, women's Torah learning, you know, that will change everything, right? And then, you know, Maharaj, I think it was based on the principle that women in rabbinic roles be like the major agent of change. I don't know, a question about women as halachic authorities. You know, Rabbi Torah, you mentioned if young women had an opportunity to be learning in Israel at the same level as the guys. Like if you could pick one thing, what do you think would be the most powerful engine of having, you know, change like a broader impact?
So I'm just going to repeat your question because I'm not sure everybody heard, even in the room and probably not on the Zoom. Rabbi Linzer asked a really poignant question, spoken like a true visionary. We've heard about how there were points that were clear in the past that they were agents of change. For example, Drisha offered women an opportunity to learn on a high level. That was an agent of change. That was a game changer. Changing the Yeshivat Maharat took this up another level to give women roles, or to strive towards giving women roles with rabbinic authority. Rabbanit Dvorah spoke about in Israel, women literally just having the same level as men. And of course, you also spoke about something that isn't quite there, but has definitely improved, seeing many, many women in the Beit Midrash. It's not 6 or 8 anymore. There are definitely more. So Rabbi Linzer is saying, given everything that he has heard and people have heard tonight, can you envision what could be the next agent of change? The only thing I would say, Rabbi Linzer, before we turn to the panel, given where each one of these women are in different continents and at different points along that timeline, I don't think that necessarily it's the same agent of change. So I think that's actually a question to each one of them. So we're actually going to pause here because there's a lot to talk. Oh, Jean, you also have a question? No. So we're going to pause. So first of all, I would like a short answer, please, just to address the first question. And then that'll be a wonderful recap, actually, a wonderful way to close for each of these wonderful, amazing women to think about what they may imagine could be an agent. One step, but just one. Just one. Okay, so first about the Ethiopian and Sephardic communities.
Yeah, first, it's the first time I'm going to talk about it in English. So I hope that I'm doing it from the PR perspective in a good choices of words. Okay, so there is a huge discussion, wide discussion in Israel, like in feminism in general, about white feminism and all of the colors.
Mhm.
And like revolution of halachic feminism in the Orthodox world, but the conservative a bit, and the reform considered to Ashkenazi as a
Yep.
white revolution. So it's really a critique issue. And in Kollel, there were like trying like some processes to work with knowledge that coming from Morocco, Egypt, Syria, Libya, and it was hard because like really the statement of, for example, Arevot, it's really serious group.
But you have
And
to explain.
I'll say Arevot, like it's a word that it's like the Maghreb, like the side of the map of the world of the east, never mind all the reason of this word. And it's like to be like Arevim ze lazeh, like the solidarity.
Responsible for each
Yeah.
other.
So it's responsibility, solidarity, and being part of the Middle East and even more East. Okay, let's say it like this. They said that in a way, like you can say like the white Orthodox feminism, for example, that you establish a few programs for halacha. So you put Rabbi Yosef Karo, for God's sake, is not Ashkenazi person. And you put some Rabbi Vadia's statements, but why don't you include other opinions? Why there's no rock stars, women and men, like, you know, Asnat Barazani, this is part of their job. And they feel, and I do think that they are correct, that it's still very white. And it's kind of like blinks and like decorative things, the not Ashkenazic side. So I think Israel is a good example of kibbutz galuyot and the melting pot. So I do have like the hope that things will change. And I'll just remind, like I'll say that my colleagues, Rabbanit Shira Mervis, she all the time saying, I want to be a Rav Badia. I don't want to be a Rav Lau or a Rav Goren or a Feinstein. So it's really important. And it's going to answer the other question. I think that
You can answer that question.
some of
as
the
well. Rabbi
programs in
Winter's
Israel,
question?
some of the programs right now having the view about practice of Dayaniyot. Okay, they see that women can be not just rabbi as meshivot, giving the answer that we know that we can open other books and to find it, like new book, new decision. Are we going to succeed with this process? How long is it till the successful
Can you
point?
explain what Dayanot is?
Dayanot, it's other level of being a rabbi. Like for example, men, when he's ordained as a rabbi, he needs to study another more 8 years and like have more knowledge. It's not just a doctorate, it's maybe more professor, I want to say. It's not just, you know, like the pyramid of knowledge just to know and how to explain things that already exist. It's to establish new curriculum, new idea, new perspective, new intersectionality between medicine and halachic life.
Nice.
So, and it is a lot on the shoulder of women. And part of the question is the agency that the women that are rabbis right now feeling with themselves, not just the society, it's a personality path. And it's really hard, I can say it, this is one of the things being feminist, it's really to do things and always to feel that you've got the cracks in yourself with your secure or insecure. So this is one of my answering. And I think that the Arevot, it's another like view of like a point of view of halacha, not just through the Ashkenazic and Western world.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Just one word, because you see that the problems are not the same in France and in USA and Israel. It's quite different. I think that the main agenda of changement in France would be the awareness of women, of what they could, what they had, what they would have to do in order to be a complete Jewish woman, a complete part of the Jewish people, and not to be just the shadow of the man, of the husband of the man. Because I think, and I'm sure I'm right, that that is not the teaching of the Judaism I was taught, and you teach and you show. And the French women are not aware of this, and thus we have a big big program to do to transmit this.
Thank you, thank you. Deborah, take us home.
Raise expectations. Beautiful.
That's it,
Say that a
two
little
words.
louder.
Raise.
Raise
And your
expectations.
voice, yes. Beautiful.
I want
And-
to add something.
And one second, I just, but I want to say that Rabbanit Devorah, what you said is not so different from what Professor Janine said at all.
I was gonna say,
It's,
same-
it's,
that's the
the
same.
sa- it's expecting more and expecting more. You know, it's like when you teach children and they grow, when you treat them and expect them to take responsibility, that's when they'll step up. But it's raising expectations and awareness and teaching more. So there's a lot to talk about there. Yes, you want to say
Just
one more
add,
thing? Yes.
We didn't talk about the field of mystic field in Judaism. Like most of the researchers right now in the world are women. The esoteric knowledge was closed in the traditional world, and through the academia, it's open to us. My first chapter was with Zohar and like research in manuscript, and then I felt like I need to feel the knowledge of halacha because it's not the same way that
Don't you have a daughter, Zohar?
Yeah, this is
Oh,
the
there you
reason.
go.
Zohar,
Now
I
we
gave
know.
birth the day before Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Yortzeit. Of course, this is the reason. So I just want to say that it's not really a different process. And women in Zohar and like Hasidish right now writing new books, new researchers, new levels. So when I have this view, I can pick out the view of halachic, more books, more knowledge, more levels, and more agency. And there is other discussion what's going on when women get inside field that used to belong to men, what's going on with the men and the quality and the prestige. But it's other discussion.
All right, well, thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. No, I think that obviously the clear answer is to create a WhatsApp group. Like, there's nothing will happen if we don't. And we can definitely call it raising expectations. I want to thank everybody here. I want to thank these amazing women. Please, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbanit, for and Lagoda.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
You know about that. It's funny. You know what Mark Twain said, right? You got me on your yard. You got a yard.
There you go.
Yes.
Somebody's gone.
Yeah, that was why we recorded. Bye, everybody, whoever was on. I don't know if they're still on, some people. Thanks for coming on.